I do.
As long as that's all they do, if they start.
Currently off.
I don't think it's legal anymore, is it? Yeah, but once you do that, it's dead.
I'm sure it feels like we're done here. That's a good one.
I have this meeting. Supposed to go, but so I'm gonna be there all by myself.
Well, Billy
Al
said-
Hernandez is gonna be
Billy
there.
said it, Martha said that he was
Oh
gonna
really?
send
I
it
didn't
to
see
him.
it. I can go, I guess. I didn't know because. If you want to tag team, I can go with you. I don't. I'm going to talk about my stuff. If you want to come, that's good. Now he did say he said I could be on his list for. You think you want? I just asked. I don't get his. How long is it?
We're talking.
That was my process. I got 3 pages of that. I'll give you 2 sentences. I can just
What do you
record
mean
my.
by that?
Give a gap. I don't know. I promise you don't. I've never been. I didn't
Bill.
see it.
Bill,
What's his last
he
name?
does my taxes. Ricardo, you ready? Okay, I'd like to call the City Council Workshop of Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. It is 5:22 p.m. Can I have the roll call, please?
Yes. Kenneth Burgess.
Here.
Charles Proctor. Here. Lance Smith. Here. Jody Wilkerson. Stephen Spina.
Here.
Mayor Munson.
Here.
William Poe.
Here.
Matthew Maggard.
Okay, if I could ask everybody at this time to make sure you silence your electronics. At this point, we have citizens' comments. This is for items that are not already on the agenda, so does anybody signed up to speak to anything?
I don't have anybody with me. Let me double check the board.
Okay.
Anybody sign up? You're good, Ricardo. Nobody signed up.
All right,
Save you a trip.
This would be the day somebody did.
we just have the one item, the workshop item of the draft budget presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to the city manager at this time.
All right, so since the 826 workshop, these are the total changes. Capital outlay was decreased by just over $5.5 million. That change was from the tennis center. Those state appropriation dollars were removed from fiscal year 25 budget because we encumbered the funds this year. And also there was $1.25 million for effluent pump station, and those dollars were encumbered this year as well. So both of those projects, along with some other much smaller projects, were taken out of the fiscal year 25 because the dollars were encumbered this year. So that's the $5.5 million decrease. The personnel services, the $307,000, that is raises and the dollars that we spoke about last meeting. The operating expenditures decreased by $42,000. Departments went through and kind of scrubbed their budgets a little bit. The budgeted reserves, that increased. You have to help me on this one. I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm going to say it wrong. You can come to this one. Go over here. Just stay here. Yeah, just sit here.
Jessica Carter, Finance Supervisor for the City of Zephyrhills. So the budgeted reserves, the capital project that was in the wastewater department, 1.25, came out of capital and went down into his reserve line item as overflow funds at the moment for excess revenues. So that's why that number increased. So it just went from one line item to the other.
So for in total, there's a $4 million decrease in the budget that was proposed to you on the 26th. Any questions?
Tell me again why the personnel services increased. That's just between the drafts because of
The raises and things we talked about last meeting, plugging in numbers, making some assumptions, and plugging in. Council was asking what it would cost for the raises. So we made the assumption of the scenario that you saw at the last meeting, which was the 4% and 3%, and then the assumption with the unions. So that's how those numbers increased.
okay. And then the budgeted reserves.
Budgeted reserves is the effluent pump station.
Okay.
We moved those dollars.
All right. All right, never mind.
That was it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So the governmental budget changes, oh my gosh,
The communication service tax increased by just over $50,000. The gas tax increased by $8,700. The ZPD MOU revenue increased by $20,000. That was revenue that we weren't aware of until we had a conversation with Chief, and so that was added. It's a reimbursable amount. Investigations, we increased by $10,000. The planning department's line item, professional services, was decreased by $75,000 because there was a grant that we had applied for that we did not receive. We lowered the CRA capital land purchase by $2,000. We lowered the general fund administration overtime, professional services, R&M buildings, and legal ads by $76,000. That was a combined dollar amount. As said earlier, the tennis center was removed out of fiscal year 25. We added 2 new capital purchases for the PD cameras, and which was for $45,000, and that was out of impact fees. What was the second one? Do you remember?
They were both police impact fees?
Yeah, but what was the other project? Do you know, or the other item?
Both camera
Oh, they're
projects.
both camera. Okay. We increased the stormwater pump station upgrades from $200,000 to $400,000 based on an estimate that we received. Added $500,000 to the general fund to reserves. That was from the undesignated reserves. So that's a contingency line item. In case anything bad happens, we have some dollars that we can pull from. And workers' comp rate decreased from 2.7725% to 2.3566%. And the salaries, as I said, were entered at 4% and 3%. And then the tiered incentive pay. The tiered incentive pay was emailed to you, but then I also passed it out to increase or to add the $250 to the 18 employees that were receiving zero. That was an additional $4,500. So it's $147,000 to increase the amounts to $2,000, $1,500, $1,500. That would cost $221,500. And then there's also the list, the count of employees who would receive which amount. Questions?
I have a question on the workman's comp.
Yep.
It decreased. Was that because we were pretty good about not making a lot of claims, or is it?
I will have to say that the HR director worked really hard with our provider, and they worked. Yeah, I mean,
They're down. Because she did a good job, but they're down.
Well, good job.
And do we know a dollar amount that would be roughly, just a guess even?
From the first draft to the second draft, it was, at first it was a cost savings of about a little over 40,000. But then, of course, when we plugged in all the anticipated, proposed union rates and stuff like that, that number, it's based on salaries. So when salaries increased,
Right,
the number
right.
will fluctuate,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Okay.
that was the general fund. The enterprise budget changes. We lowered the airport repair and maintenance by $5,000. That's for the lights and the PAPIs, all things I don't know exactly what are, but they're along the runway. Pilots hit them every once in a while. Sanitation rentals leases by $2,000. Utility fund, the water telephone by $5,000. Wastewater overtime, $20,000. Treatment plant, effluent pump, talked about that, removing that or bringing it into fiscal year 24. Workers' comp rate, same story, decreased, and the salaries, same as the general fund.
I have a question then. How can you lower wastewater overtime?
Looking at the numbers and what was projected and historical spending.
That's one area where we're kind of continually understaffed, isn't it, in there, so.
Yes.
But
Based on what the numbers we looked at, yes.
Billy, you said that we're gonna give them 4% on 1013 and then the other 3% on 413 for a total of 7, not counting the bonuses.
Correct.
Or is that what we're
That is what's in the budget currently, yes.
There's no way to do it all at once.
No.
What kind of a difference would that make?
I would have to go back in and plug it in.
I just wondered.
I don't have that number readily available for you, but I can take a look.
Whenever you
I
get it.
mean, just my mind. Look at the 4%, 3 times your, that percentage for a lot of them will bring their salary up quite a bit. I mean, $1,500 on what's under 40
Right.
is what, 3% more or something, or depending on.
Ask us to do math. I don't know. I can't do math that quick.
Bonuses start at 2,000 though, correct? And it's
1,500.
So that's a conversation that needs to be, we need direction from council. Is 1,500, 1,000, 500 is what was proposed. Then there was a question of adding 250 for anybody that was over $80,000. So we gave you that number, and then there was a conversation on increasing numbers from 2,000, making them 2,000, 1,500, 1,500, and I gave you that number. So there needs to be direction on what that bonus structure, what you would like to see as a council, that bonus structure.
For me personally, I'd like to start it at 2, but I mean, I get it.
But, all right, again, I'm going to disagree.
It's okay.
You know, I mean, your neighbors on 8th Street might not think that the three budget or a lot when their taxes and their groceries and their things are going up as well. Probably not getting. By the time they're done, some employees will be getting over 8% raises this year.
So can I say, when I suggested that was when I thought we were doing a flat 4%. I did not know we were going to do 4 and then 3 on top of it. So I apologize for throwing that one out, but that's where it changed in the middle of all this, so.
Yeah, I will concur with what the mayor said, was that once it became 7%, you kind of backed away from that statement of increasing the incentive. I know the employees don't want to hear that, but that was the conversation. Any questions? No?
Hang on. What's in there now is the 4, the 3, and then which one of these? 142.5 or
The middle column
147?
with adding the 250
Okay.
to the
Gotcha,
higher up.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the 147,000 is what was added in along with the 4 and the 3.
Thank you.
Total 100.
For incentive pays, yes.
And on that, the funding for that is, we're using undesignated reserves because it is a one-time expense. Don't foresee it reoccurring. So we used undesignated reserves for that.
And that, moving from the undesignated reserves, I was getting that mixed up with the other reserves you had in this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's where I was going.
Oh, okay, all right. Here's the tiered incentive pay. Again, we talked about this, it just shows the number of employees that are going to get each dollar amount. Meeting schedule, I will pause here for a second, or actually probably more than a second. I did receive questions from council. I'd asked each of you to send me kind of your questions for this evening. There was, hold on, let me get my, so there was a question on, to clarify the funding sources for the city yard project. Currently, there's 1.2 million of penny for Pasco for the general fund, 600,000 out of the utility fund, and 200,000 out of the sanitation fund, and that is for the design and engineering of the city yard complex. The future funding for construction will be funded through the use of undesignated fund balance and debt financing. So that's something we'll have to sit, have a conversation, and lay out that plan of how we pay for that going forward. There's another question about the funding for the airport terminal. Currently, we're working, just to bring everybody up to speed, the funding, the state appropriation that we received was $6.6 million. The box hangers and taxiway Foxtrot came in, and we're eating just about all of that money, at least enough of it that it's not feasible not enough to do anything else with. So we are we're having conversations with our state representatives on how we can reappropriate and pull the terminal out of the current appropriation request. And so what that means, we have a couple options. One, we ask for an additional appropriation, next year or in the coming years. Or two, we can wait until fiscal year 27, 28, or a year in the future and go to the FAA or DOT, to FDOT, and ask for a 50-50 grant to pay for it. So obviously the state appropriation hopefully would get us the most amount of money. So we'll have conversations with our state representatives, try to go that route. If not, we would then turn towards FDOT and try to go for a 50-50 grant.
Did you say then that the box hangers and the taxiway will eat up the whole 6.6 million? Is that what you said?
Yes.
So, but that was supposed to be included in the terminal, but the prices have gone up?
Correct. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the sad part, I guess, is that we had an appropriation for the itinerant parking, and we came in way under budget on that. But because it was designated for itinerant parking, they won't allow us to merge the funds together. So those dollars just go back to the state.
All right, and the terminal is about 4 million?
About 4.9.
4.9?
Close to 5 million. Yeah.
So if we pull it out, does that preclude us from going forward again in the future as an appropriation?
Those are the conversations we're having.
Okay.
Yeah. I was told reappropriation is not a good word in Tallahassee, so you have to be very careful. So Representative Maggard's aide, Jeff, was going to look into some things for me, which today is his last day. So we'll start over again.
Man, I saw Danny today. I wish I knew. I would have.
We've spoken to him as well. I mean, we've spoken to his office.
What about, can we pull Wilton into the conversation since he's directed a lot of money here? I mean.
We'll use every avenue we can. Yeah. We're not afraid to ask.
But with that appropriation, we get the two big box hangers, right, and all of the taxiway that we're looking for. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I guess maybe my question is when we asked for that money and we got the appropriation, was it for the FBO? And then if we're not using it for that, are we going to be considered again?
That's part of the reappropriation and making sure that we get the language correct. So I talked to Secretary Gwynn, the MAP meeting that was held in Dade City. I'd spoken to him. He had given me some language or suggestion because the funding's through DOT. So obviously we don't want to upset them, but we also need to work through the Senator Burgess and Representative Maggard's offices to make sure they have the right language, or we get the right language to them, I guess.
Anybody else on the?
There was a question about funding sources for the Zephyr Park, and that will be, again, undesignated reserves, debt financing. The idea that we've had is that there'll be a presentation at council and possibly combining both the parks, not both, but the park plan and the city yard plan, and trying to figure out a joint funding program for them and not having to keep going back to the debt service and figuring it out. So we'll combine both of those and bring those back before you. Question about irrigation at Zephyr Park is, we'll have to get with the landscape architect. There should be landscaping probably in the landscaped areas, but as far as grass, it'll just be bahia. So I don't foresee any irrigation in those areas. Question about the where the money's coming from for the historic preservation, and that is penny for Pasco dollars. And then there was a question regarding sidewalks outside of the CRA, specifically Airport Road and 6th Avenue. There is sidewalk funding for that. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we have ordered surveys for both of those. I did check today. We've not received those, so a call's been placed to the surveyor to get an update on the survey of both of those roads. So there is $1 million that's budgeted for sidewalks. So outside of the CRA, yes.
500,000 for trails.
That'll get you one, unfortunately.
I think it's about a block.
Probably a plan.
A block of
Half of
what
a
you're
plan.
looking for, sorry.
When you talked about, for like these projects on Zephyr Park and the city yard, you talk about undesignated fund balance or reserves. What exactly do you mean by that?
So there's revenues that were not expended in X number of X year. And so there's kind of like our savings account. There's a pot of money that is in the undesignated reserve. Ted, you want to help me?
Is that like the $8 million that they talked about
Correct.
in the audit?
That's
Okay.
exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yep. So
And
it's
then-
dollars, and those have to be, just to clarify for everybody, is those dollars can only be used for non-reoccurring projects, expenditures, emergency items, not for reoccurring expenses.
Is there so we're talking about projects that are probably going to cost $25 million if we kind of blend them both we don't want to spend the entire reserve, I'm sure. So there'd be some loan, but would Penny for Pasco and things like that also contribute?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's part of the presentation and the conversation is a combination of the reserve dollars plus Penny for Pasco. Penny for Pasco was renewed back in last November for 15 years. So
Okay, and the reason I ask is because in the capital improvement plan, these dollars are plugged into the plan. So it's like coming up. But you did show also that you have what the Penny for Pasco reserves are, and that's like that's the total project amount you want to spend for Penny for Pasco in here?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
It's confusing to me because you showed that total Penny for Pasco shows $10 million.
What page are you on, Steve?
For
I'm on
CIP,
the
for Zephyr
CIP.
Park?
Okay.
The last page of the budget.
So it's on the very last page.
Yeah.
So we will be using Penny for Pasco funds to cover the loan or the debt financing.
Right.
So we will have those expenditures all at once when we go out for the debt financing. So we want to plug it in because things are going to be happening as soon as we get approved. Expenditures are going to start rolling in. So the expenditures still will be going out and probably out of that line item. But then, the loan payments back will be coming out of the Penny for Pasco.
So the money labeled here, Penny for Pasco, that's loans included and the payback of it. So, or is that just the total of what we think that those projects down to that would total 10 million?
Yeah,
Because-
it's
Well, it doesn't, it's, all right. Okay, I'll get with you later to clarify that. I don't understand it.
the expenditure, like I said, even though we're going to be going out for debt financing, the expenditures are going to be occurring, as the project goes on. So we wanted to plug in expenditures that could possibly happen during those 2 fiscal years, 26 and 27, because the project's going to kick off and we are going to be spending money.
I see I know what the confusion is that we show, for instance, city yard building construction, $4.5 million each year of 26 and 27. But in reality, that $9 million will be spread over a much longer period. But right now, they're shown in 26 and 27, so we can clarify that.
All right. And yeah, and that's why I didn't understand what the 10 million is in the penny then. Is that we don't have $10 million in penny for Pasco funding?
No. No.
No, not right now, no.
Yeah. So I think that's the confusion, is it's shown in 2 years. We need to, because that's when the expense will occur. So we need to spread that out because there will be debt financing that we pay over the next probably 15 or so years.
Right. And that's what I did the same thing with sanitation and with utility. And so in the first 2 years, you have the 16 million.
Correct.
Spent, I guess.
Correct.
But it'll go further.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and clean that up.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's also, there was a question about not forgetting Gunner Park when we do the Parks Master Plan. That is noted. There was a question about the speed signs, or a speed sign on South Avenue. That there is a sign there, a temporary sign, and we also budgeted dollars in fiscal year 25 for a couple additional speed signs.
I know speed signs, so we just have it where they're portable to where we can just move them around to the hot spots as needed instead of making permanent purchases in certain areas.
So there's both. We have speed signs. We have both portable and permanent. Right. Budgeted? No, but budgeted we have 2 that are permanent, but we have portable ones as well. Yeah. Okay. So we have portable signs that we can move around, but then we also have purchased permanent signs like that you see on Simon's 23rd, 1st Street.
Right.
That we will put in kind of known areas, known high-speed areas to try to slow people down. We've also budgeted some dollars after a conversation with Pasco County MPO for additional striping and some other measures that we're going to try to see if they'll slow people down.
We budgeted some sound deadening so we could hear what we're saying up here.
Yeah. We're going to work on that as well. We talked about the incentive pay. We've talked about, there was a question about numbers for design and construction of Zephyr Park City Yard. We kind of talked about the construction. And so we have the design. City Yard is right at $2 million, and Zephyr Park was just over $900,000. And those were recently approved by council. There was a question or statement on training. Those are duly noted, and we're looking at those. There was a question about the city attorney and those fees. If you remember, we increased the hourly rate, so that is a reason for it. And this is, RPOs are also increasing, which is a good thing that we're doing them, but they cost money and time, and they're not always the first that are heard at the courthouse. So that is part of it. There's a question about when the fire contractual services agreement is up. We have fiscal year 25 and then fiscal year 26 and 27. And I believe this year it's 300 and something thousand. Next year it's like 176, and then year 3 it's like 226. So we got about $600,000 left over the next 3 years that we'll be paying. All right? Yep. Oh, there we go. All right. Zephyr Park Safety Initiative, we've talked about that at the staff level, so we're working on that. Watch out. I know who it was. And then there was a question regarding hybrid jobs, so I've spoken with HR, and we're going to work on a presentation for that as well. There's also a conversation or question regarding Alice Hall. And having that in the CIP. That's a conversation that will be had at the the September 23rd CRA meeting. The Kimberly Horn will be here to present. GAI will be here to present to the CRA board, and we can have a conversation around Alice Hall. The concern was removing Alice Hall before we have an alternative. Is it, does it remain there? Is it relocated or rebuilt somewhere else? So those are all conversations that we need to have, and staff needs direction from council of this is the direction we want to go, so we can go that way. I believe that was all the questions that I received this week. Are there any questions from council?
Anybody want to follow up on some of their questions?
Yeah, Mr. President. We kind of went over a capital improvement plan, but we really didn't, we didn't give it enough justice. And when I say that, we need to look at the funding sources. We need to look at the repayment of the funding sources, and we need to stretch the timeline out to match what's really going to happen. I mean, and I understand that maybe our 10,000 or 10 million would be, there would be an entry also into some type of a debt at that time, and that's where some of the or the bulk of the money would come from for the projects. But I really want us to do a real comprehensive look at that, because it's gonna dictate what other capital projects we're going to be able to take on, and everybody kind of needs to be aware of the cost going forward. So,
Correct.
and you said we were going to do that, have that as just a workshop or
Correct.
a meeting? Okay.
I believe so, yeah. I don't think we need to try to cram that into
No. I think that's
council
a single item there, because
Yes.
it'll, it's a long-range look, and that's what I think we should do.
Correct.
So, thank you.
Okay. Mayor, you have anything, or?
Might as well ask a question. We're not going
Hey, I'm
anywhere.
trying to keep my mouth shut today.
Well, we're going back upstairs.
Well, that's true.
So while you're, oh, you have a question? All right.
Well, we had talked about, I had a meeting with Senator Burgess today, and we had talked about some of the septic to sewer projects, and we drove around the 6th Avenue area, but we also went into Lincoln Heights and then up Airport Road, and we had talked about possibly, it would be, to get everybody, it would have to be coming from both sides, and the Airport Road side would come, I guess, from the lift station and connections in Lincoln Heights. Is that right?
Possibly, yes.
And so that would be something that, if those projects get approved, or if we, if there's matching funds or anything, or would we have reserves available to move on those if we get some state funding?
So we applied for FDEP grant to do Otis Moody. We did not include going down Airport Road because I didn't have the information to make the submittal. So it would be from the on 6th Avenue from the railroad tracks east to about Brown Street. So it'd pick up everything on 6th Avenue. The portion on Airport Road was not part of that grant submittal. I don't know if that answers.
Well, we're meeting with the county. I was going to bring up ask a question about community development block grant money too. So we can do that because, I mean, there's people out there other than just live in Otis Moody that are interested in the connection. And since the entire thing is in our utility service area and they all have city water, it would be better, I guess, to try to connect everybody, but it would be separate projects because I don't think they're coming all from the same place.
Yeah, I can't answer which direction
I thought
it flows.
that Otis Moody would be coming from the lift station at South Avenue and over.
And it might be. I don't know the direction of flow there. Yeah, there is a lift station that's at 6th Ave, South Ave. That it very well may tie into that and run back and pick up everything from Armstrong back to there. But I don't know that for sure.
Steve, did you say that, were you going to bring it up at the joint meeting with the county? With that
Yeah,
CDBG?
it was one of the things I sent to Billy because I also wanted to, I had a question about the city attorney also, but you answered that. And then you did do some, in the administration, your professional services was cut by about 5,000.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Professional services on page 22 or page 19, it depends on where you, page 19, I think, in the actual budget.
Your professional services line item for administration.
I printed it from,
We dropped it down to 5,000
I printed it off the website.
Okay.
when we were shaving a little bit from it.
Cut it by 5,000? What's the question? I'm sorry.
Professional services was cut by 5,000. Is that where you were trying to just cut things from different departments? Or-
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear. And I can't read lips that well either, so.
I don't talk loud anyway, so.
Mr. President, Billy, I know we got money.
You gotta lean up, I can't hear you, sorry.
Billy, I know we got money for the movie theater. That money was just, the money that we've gotten so far was just to purchase the building?
That money is not to the city, so it is not in our budget.
Oh,
That is,
I got
Main
it.
Street has that.
Main
But,
Street.
yes, they have the money to purchase and to do renovation, and hopefully Senator Burgess comes through with more money.
Thanks.
So while you guys are thinking about questions, our next step is to September 9th. You'll have the final millage in front of you, which is 6.25 mils, which is the same as it currently is, and the tentative budget will be presented. And then on September 23rd, you will have the final budget for approval. And then we can always make changes between now and the 23rd. After the 23rd's approval, there are no more changes unless you do a budget amendment.
And then just to be clear, we all agree on the salaries. We're going to get 4% to employees in October. The incentive bonus probably in December. And the rest of it, the 3% in April.
That is what is proposed, yes.
Okay.
So
And
as
that's
long
what's-
as I don't get different direction, that's what's in there, yes, sir.
All right. And that's what's in the latest draft.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Good then.
Any questions? Everyone's ready to go run to the car? They're going to have to bring more pumps, I think, to back to Silver Oaks.
Leave it to the water guy to bring protection.
Was there anything else that you needed direction on? I mean, the salaries you got?
Salaries I got direction on the incentive tiered tier. I think that's all we needed.
I guess the only other thing we need to talk about then more is the revenue side of the projects in the capital improvement plan. On
Correct.
how you're going to finance those and what percent will be
Yep.
undesignated, penny for Pasco, and then a loan or.
Correct. Yep. We can do those. Right.
Oh, on the, I guess the tiered incentive, did we make a decision on which one you were going to go with?
I'll let you decide. But what I was doing was the 1,500 to 250.
Okay.
You know,
That's
original,
what-
like I said, original plan was 1,500 to 500, and anybody above that top salary was going to get zero.
But that was, this one here, where you added in the 250 on the 18 employees. Okay.
Right here, correct. Yeah, on the screen.
Right.
Is what you'd see. So if you want something different than that,
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that was the one that you were going forward with.
this is the one I was going to go forward with, the 1,500, 1,000, 500, 250, unless council has a different direction. Okay.
Right. That,
Any other questions? That's all I have.
anybody have
If
any
there's not any questions.
questions on? Do we have any citizens' comments on the agenda? Okay. I mean, I can adjourn the meeting, or we can sing karaoke till the rain dies down.
Hang out and talk. Or we can go continue our.
Okay,
Our
well, I'm going to
meeting.
go ahead and adjourn the budget workshop.
Stay dry.
There's
Or
That is some rain there.
yeah, so